Let's go! Kentucky and Missouri are fraudulent, and there's one school you should buy some stock right now when it comes to the rest of their schedule. So, let's chat about it on this week's Power Takes. Now, the first thing that really stands out to me is when I go through and look at all these other power rankings. Heck, I do my own power rankings. And one thing that we are attached to is record. And there is no thing more overrated earlier than the record of a team when it comes to college football. And I understand that that does not sound normal, right? You are what your record says you are, correct? Well, that's to me only true at the end of the season when everybody has played a somewhat similar schedule. And up to this point, the narrative surrounding Kentucky, Missouri, and, well, actually, I'll save this other school a little bit later, and the narrative surrounding those schools are that those programs are doing really well. They are undefeated, right? And the narrative around South Carolina, who is a 2-3 school, is that, well, they are struggling. They are falling short of expectations, and it couldn't be further from the truth. I don't understand why we do this each and every season, because all you have to do, this is honestly not rocket science, is go look at Kentucky's schedule, who had the easiest opening month we have ever seen in the Southeastern Conference, playing 3 schools that honestly have no business being on any SEC schedule, and then playing Vanderbilt. And then after that, they, of course, beat down the Florida Gators at home in Kroger Field. But then again, who really are the Florida Gators, right? They have had one game this year where they have looked great, and that was against Tennessee. But all their other games, they have fallen short. Their offense has sputtered, and of course, their defense has a super young defensive coordinator, and he had his first really bad game. So what has Kentucky done up to this point to prove to you that they're really anything? And honestly, this is coming from someone that actually had Kentucky over their win total this year. So it's obviously a good thing for me that they're winning all these football games. But we all know what's going to happen. They are going to play Georgia, and they are likely going to lose. So, obviously, they'll come back down to earth, and in 2 weeks, they will play Missouri, okay? A school that I compared this offseason to Kentucky as one that I am buying stock with. Then again, what has Missouri done up to this point, right? They are 5-0, and that obviously is a really good thing. But that 5-0 features 3 one-possession wins, including a 23-19 victory over 1-4 Middle Tennessee State. And they had a week and a half to prepare for that game because they kicked their season off on a Thursday, okay? Now, the Kansas State victory, obviously very good, but they were at home. And, of course, Kansas State lost Deuce Vaughn and a good piece of what they had last year. And, look, Missouri has a great kicker. They have a great wide receiver. They've got a great quarterback. They have a coaching staff that I like a lot. Missouri was also a team I took the over on their win total this year. But then again, they have also not really played anybody. And it's time to realize that maybe, just maybe, we are overrating Missouri, even though I think they have a good shot of upsetting LSU this next weekend. I do find it interesting that SP Plus has Missouri as a slight favorite, even though the line, of course, is actually all the way down to 5. It opened up at 6.5. So we'll see what Missouri is, and we'll see what the Missouri and Kentucky game looks like here in just a few weeks. Now, one stat that I think a lot of you would find interesting is Missouri last year versus Georgia scored more points than Kentucky has scored versus Georgia the past 4 seasons combined. So if I'm a Kentucky fan, I understand that you're playing a wounded Georgia team. If there was ever a shot for you to go into Athens and make this game a little juicy, it's this one, right? Because this Georgia team obviously isn't all too great. But honestly, at this point, I am not sure if I could actually see that happen. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here on today's Power Takes is the South Carolina Gamecocks. Now, this team, all right, I'm looking at you right now. This is kind of following the same narrative as last year, right? South Carolina just kind of stumbled through, and then by the end of the season, they were playing as good as anybody in the SEC. As I can argue, Shane Beamer had 2 victories in 2 weeks that are way better than any Mark Stoops victory that he's had over the past decade. So I would buy stock into South Carolina. I understand that their lines aren't that great. I understand that Spencer Rattler is struggling turning the football over. But this is me just betting on Shane Beamer at this point, okay? We'll see if Loggins actually turns out to be a good OC hire. I think they kept Clayton White a year too long as their defensive coordinator. And like I tried to warn South Carolina fans about during this offseason, Trey Knox and, of course, a couple of these other transfers have not stepped up. I know a lot of you are waiting for Nicholas Harbor to get going, one of the most hyped recruits in South Carolina history. And look, part of the reason why I'm buying stock into Shane Beamer and telling South Carolina fans to not panic, all three of your losses kind of made sense, right? You played an opening week game, a neutral sider versus the number 2 pick in the NFL draft. Then your second loss was a valiant effort on the road versus Georgia. And this last loss was an ugly loss. Tennessee, of course, a great program. But that game was semi-competitive. It wasn't as if, I know the final score said you got blown out. It wasn't as if they just wiped you off the field. Shane Beamer's teams tend to play better as the season moves on, and I am actually buying some stock into South Carolina as the season moves on. I think they could be Clemson at the end of the season. I think that they could get to 6-6 and have another bowl season. Heck, if I'm buying stock, I might as well say that they're going to. But yeah, we'll see. I think for me, obviously the back-to-back road game there is not pretty coming up at Missouri and, of course, at Texas A&M. But you do get this bye week, and you do get Florida coming in. And Florida, of course, has not really been playing all that great. So as of right now, like we said before the season, South Carolina has had the toughest schedule. And I don't think anyone could really argue to the contrary. And that actually backs itself up with the ESPN FPI metrics. South Carolina has the nation's number 2 most difficult schedule up to this point, while South Carolina and Kentucky have both been, I say South Carolina, Missouri and Kentucky have both been outside the top 90, with Missouri at 95 and Kentucky at 124. So let me know what you guys think. Obviously, I feel as if this weekend our opinions of Missouri and Kentucky will change because I do think Georgia and LSU both win convincingly. It is Power Hour SEC. Boom! All right, we got some other voter videos floating in your face, and tonight we are doing... Oh, it's pork chops. Night 2. Let's go.